Was the Obama administration really surprised by the flood of illegal immigrant children across the border? And what is the administration policy when it comes to deportation now? This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Brett Baer. Neither the influx of illegal immigrant children nor the political uproar over it shows any signs of calming down tonight. President Obama's point man on the crisis continues to sidestep questions about eventual amnesty, and we are learning that the whole thing may actually have been on the radar months ago. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry has tonight's top story.
As President Obama heads to Texas this week for 2 days of fundraising and a speech on the economy, Republicans are pressing him to get more aggressive about the crisis on the southern border with a surge of illegal immigration from Central America.
I would put on the table cutting off any foreign assistance to these countries until they embrace solving this problem. The president has sent a message out, where he knows it or not: if you get to America, you can stay. That
message appeared to be reinforced Sunday when Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson dodged questions about whether the children will be deported to Central America.
We are looking at ways to create additional options for dealing with the children, in particular, consistent with our laws and our values.
White House spokesman Josh Earnest today pledged the law will be enforced.
Why couldn't your Homeland Security Secretary say that when asked repeatedly on NBC yesterday? He could not say what you said.
What the Homeland Security Secretary was very clear about is our commitment to enforcing the law and making sure.
He asked that 4 times, and he kept talking about other options. And
he was asked very directly about whether or not this administration is committed to enforcing the law, and that's exactly what we are doing.
Earnest said one problem is a 2008 anti-trafficking law requires specific handling of children apprehended at the border, so the process can take longer. Tomorrow, the president will unveil a special budget request for Congress to fund more immigration lawyers and judges to try and speed up that process. Though now, even some Democrats are questioning the president's approach, with Democrat Henry Cuellar of Texas saying Mr. Obama should visit the border while he's in the state Wednesday and Thursday.
With all due respect, I think he's still one step behind. They knew this was happening a year ago, last year, and again, they're not reacting fast enough.
In fact, while the administration has seemed surprised by the crisis, there are signs they knew it was coming. Back in January, the Department of Homeland Security began shopping for contractors to move kids around the United States, saying, quote, there will be approximately 65,000 unaccompanied alien children in total, 25% local transport, 25% via ICE charter, and 50% via commercial air.
Now, officials confirmed that contract is real, but insist it was just about long-term planning. Meanwhile, Josh Earnest told us the president still has no plans to visit the border because he's already been briefed about the crisis. And Earnest said they have no concerns about the optics of the president fundraising just a few hundred miles away. Brett?
Ed Henry live on the North Lawn. Ed, thanks. Let's look at what the law really says about immigrant minors. Senior political analyst Brit Hume is here with the surprising facts. Good evening, Brit.
Hi, Brett. In the uproar over the tens of thousands of illegal immigrant children pouring across the border, many people don't know what the law is, and others pretend they don't. Republican Congressman Raul Labrador of Idaho said on Sunday TV that the Obama administration should deport these children immediately. Later in the interview, he conceded that the law does not permit that. The law in question is called the William Wilberforce Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act of 2008. It was passed by Congress unanimously and signed by President Bush. It requires that immigrant minors apprehended at the border may only be deported immediately if they are from Mexico or Canada. The rest must be turned over within 3 days to the Department of Health and Human Services to await deportation hearings. In the meantime, the law says, quote, they shall be placed in the least restrictive setting that is in the best interest of the child. With an estimated 50,000 such children having come here from Central America this year, you can imagine how much trouble HHS is having housing them, not to mention how long it will take for courts to process their cases. Even then, there are a range of legal possibilities that could keep them in this country indefinitely. Politicians are fond of railing against human traffickers for spreading the rumor that such immigrant kids can easily get into this country. But it's not really a rumor, it's the law. Brett?
Britt, you heard the Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson having a hard time answering that question from David Gregory about what exactly deportation would do. Today, the White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest had this to say in repeated questioning about that.
It is our view that it's unlikely that most of those kids will qualify for humanitarian relief. If they don't qualify for that humanitarian relief and don't have a legal basis for remaining in this country, they will be sent back. Nobody should make any mistake about it.
Well, what about that?
Well, that's all true, but that's not going to be decided by Josh Earnest or anybody in the White House or Jay Johnson. That's going to be decided by the judges who hear these cases. And as I mentioned, in addition to the fact that they're entitled to stay here until their cases are heard, there are a variety of legal circumstances under which they can apply to stay here that are available to children. There's something called special immigrant juvenile status that they may be qualified for, depending on what brought them here. So that will all be decided elsewhere. That's perfectly true. I'm sure some of them will be sent back, but an awful lot of them are going to end up staying here under the law as it's written. Barring
a change in the law, it's kind of cut and dry.
It is. It's what the law requires. The Obama administration, for better or for worse, has been following it.
Brett, thank you.
You bet.
A federal judge is considering testimony tonight on another legal challenge to the president's health care plan. It involves whether members of Congress should be given special treatment on your dime. Here's Chief National Correspondent Jim Engel.
Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin is trying to sue the Obama administration because it gave many of those in Congress something no other American gets, tax-free money to cover their costs in Obamacare.
Americans hate it when elected officials or people in power are exempt from laws.
The law was clear that those in Congress would be treated the same, but then the administration issued a ruling that did the opposite.
It's not only that it wasn't in the legislation, the exact contrary rule was in the legislation.
And that, legal critics argue, gives the senator standing, meaning he can establish the administration ruling imposed a burden on him.
So when you're being regulated in a direct manner like that and you say it's illegal, that's standing. That's a personal injury to you.
Here you have a situation where the law at issue directly affects congressional offices and congressional offices alone.
Previously, members of Congress and their staffs got coverage through the Federal Employees Health Benefit Program, which, like other employer plans, is tax-free. The administration has not argued the merits of the case, saying instead those in Congress came out ahead, so where's the injury? But an even more damaging suit is pending. What is known as the Halbig case argues the law says subsidies are available only to those enrolled in exchanges, quote, established by the state, not the federal ones.
People on those exchanges should not be eligible for subsidies because subsidies are only available for people on exchanges established by the state.
But 34 states refuse to run their own marketplaces, leaving them to the federal government. If subsidies in those exchanges were ruled illegal, which the vast majority of enrollees get, it would wreak havoc in Obamacare, leading the administration to make this argument.
Well, this would be so crazy, Congress couldn't have possibly meant this, and so we have to be able to fill the gap.
Now, an unfavorable decision would drive up costs, making enrollment far less attractive. Yet another suit from House Speaker John Boehner is also looming. He accuses the president of a flippant dismissal of the Constitution by changing and creating his own laws and refusing to enforce statutes he's sworn to uphold. So a lot more court action is in the offing, Brett.
We'll continue to follow it all. Jim, thank you.
You bet.
Stocks were down today. The Dow lost 44. The S&P 500 dropped 8. The Nasdaq fell 34. Up next, rockets from Gaza, airstrikes from Israel, and more bodies. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates across the country are covering tonight. Fox 32 in Chicago, where 11 people were killed and 60 wounded in a particularly violent weekend. A local station there says at last check, no one has been charged in any of those shootings. KWYB in Montana, where it could be tomorrow before 3 airplane fuselages are recovered from the Clark Fork River. They slid down an embankment after a train derailment Saturday. 3 others fell off but stayed on land. No injuries reported there. And this is a live look at Seattle from Q13 Fox.